Welcome back for part two. Anyway, 2 seconds have passed for me. No telling how long it's passed for you. Anyway, so look at this opening. I am sitting over coffee and cigarettes at my friend Rita's, and I'm telling her about it. The it is the heart and soul of this story. It is the experience itself. It's what she's trying to get to the bottom of. Why did I feel this way? Again, it's not going to come out and be spelled out for us in big neon lights or flowery Richard Yates language. It's just going to be there in a real place, in a seemingly real setting. Most of Carver characters are working class to poor characters. Sometimes you'll see some middle class Carver characters sneak in here, which means a lot of socioeconomic issues come up, a lot of class issues come up in Carver, but that's secondary to character. And I'm telling her about it. Here is what I tell her. So again, it's clarifying that she's telling us the story of her telling the story to Rita. It is late of a slow Wednesday when Herb seats the fat man at my station. This is a long description for Carver, this next section. And note how it's in this woman's voice entirely, in this server's voice entirely. And it's important to know that it's totally in voice, but also in third person Carver stories, he sticks to the language the characters would be using. This fat man is the fattest person I've ever seen, though he's neat appearing and well dressed enough. Everything about him is big, but it's the fingers I remember the best. When I stop at the table near his to see the old couple, I first notice the fingers. They look 3 times the size of a normal person's fingers. Long, thick, creamy fingers. Okay, so see this very large person, and she zooms in on the fingers, and the fingers seem to her to be the most extreme part. This is sort of a nod to one of Carver's favorite writers, one of his biggest influences, an author named Sherwood Anderson, who you may have read in your 206, who was a short story writer, the classic collection, Winesburg, Ohio. And oftentimes he dealt with the grotesque in fiction, meaning characters who were defined by some physical attribute that may be seen as flawed in a way or extreme by society instead of who they really were. What's interesting here is the first thing she notices about him is something physical and extreme and perhaps even maybe gross to her. By the end, what she's seeing is his humanity, even if she doesn't realize it. So it is important to know that right off the bat, I don't want to say judge a book by the cover, but certainly sees the cover of the book. She's definitely seeing the physical, and that's what comes to mind first, which I think is, a fair thing. It's hard not to see the physical first sometime. We make ourselves better. We become more human by seeing beyond that. Inevitably, you would think, but certainly, the first time you see, somebody, the first thing you stand out is whatever, that guy's orange or whatever, whenever I turn on the news. I see my other tables, a party of 4 businessmen, very demanding. That line gets repeated, the businessmen, and again, that's sort of the class stuff at work here. You'll see a lot of Carver characters who work in service industries or don't have jobs. Also, I do think it's important to note and for you to follow the Carver women versus the Carver men. Usually it's the Carver women who are holding up way more than their share in a relationship, as you'll see continuing on, but we'll talk about that as we move. Another party of 4, 3 men and a woman. A woman, this old couple. Leander has poured the fat man's water. I gave the fat man plenty of time to make up his mind before going over. Good evening, I say. May I serve you, I say. Rita, he was big. I mean big. We go back to Rita here. Why does she tell Rita he was big? Because she's worried, just like Rat Kylie's worried. I hear a dog growling in the background. Penny, stop. All right? I'm gonna kick your butt. It's child abuse. You can report me to YouTube. I've lost my fucking train of thought. She pops in with Rita because, like Rat Kylie, she's worried about Rita not getting the essence of the story, which she feels it's important for Rita to know just how big this guy was. Again, she's sort of attached to sort of the physicality of the person, at least initially. So this is an interjection of stories. We've seen this before. Good evening, he says. Hello, he says. Yes. I think we're ready to order now, he says. Get back to Rita. he has this way of speaking, strange, don't you know? And he makes a little puffing sound every so often. Now, the strange way of speaking she's talking about is him referring to himself in the royal we or whatever. He's referring to himself that way. Now I ask the question, you may want to answer this in your on your Moodle discussions is why he uses we. I mean, there've been some other theories out there. So I think personally, in some ways it adds to the largeness of him, as if he's almost two people, or more. It also connects him. And some people talk that way. Some people just talk that way, and it's a thing that starts to link him between him and the main character. He's sort of bonding them with his language, and she doesn't know that. He doesn't even know it. I think we'll begin. Some people have said that maybe it's just because he's so big because he has like 3 people crammed into a jacket, like how kids used to do that, or like somebody who's sent on the show. I don't think that's it. I think we'll begin with a Caesar salad, then a bowl of soup, some extra bread, and butter, if you please. Lamb chops, I believe, baked potato, sour cream. We'll see about dessert later. Thank you very much, he says. Hands me the menu. God, Rita, those were fingers. Note that, she doesn't say that I saw his fingers. It's just that he hands the menu, so naturally you're going to see the fingers, and we go right to her reiterating to Rita just how big he was, because she's obsessed with size initially. I hurry away to the kitchen, turn the order into Rudy, who takes it with a face. You know Rudy. Rudy is that way when he works. Okay. I had to talk about this because Carver does this to us a lot. First of all, we don't know Rudy at all. So how in the hell are we supposed to know what sort of face he makes or how he is when he works? Now, ostensibly, she's talking to Rita, but also we do kind of know. And in the way that Carver leaves out certain details that maybe some authors would fill in, he allows us into the story more by us bringing our own experience. Certainly, we've all worked with people in some ways that maybe act this way, that make faces or whatever, so we can sort of see ourselves in these roles a little bit more. It's a really interesting thing. And it's not always, you're not always able to do it just with minimalism. I mean, you have to be very good at it. The way that with fewer details, we feel somehow actually more connected in the story. It's almost allowing us more room. Which, again, there's no end all. There's no great, I mean, my 2 favorite writers that I teach are Yates and Carver. And I think they both do things, and they explore similar themes very, very well. But Yates gives us every detail, and I still see myself in some of those characters. Maybe it's psychologically or whatever, but here we get things left out, and I think we can fill them in. I hurried away to the kitchen. Okay. As I come out of the kitchen, Margot, I've told you about Margot, the one who you haven't told us about Margot. You've told Rita about Margot, the one who chases Rudy. Margot says to me, "Who's your fat friend?" He's real fatty. Then we get a large white space, which means, okay, taking a pause. Maybe she's smoking a cigarette now because she's telling this story to Rita, so we take a pause. White space. But we find out that Rudy, later on, is the narrator's boyfriend, and they live together. And apparently Margot chases Rudy, so there's some play on at work there, maybe some jealousy issues, that sort of thing. And then she says something very direct, very ugly. He's your fat friend. He's really a fatty. And then after the white space, we get this. Now that's a part of it. I really think that's really a part of it. Why? And what is it a part of? First of all, it's a part of why she's so troubled or drawn to this experience that she has to talk it out, okay? But what makes that a part of it? And it seems to be this connection between the large customer and Rudy and Margot, perhaps. It's like sort of almost these sort of sides are forming. So like her defense of him initially comes from the fact that Margot, who chases Rudy, is the first one to really say something ugly. Fatty, that sort of thing. So that's sort of the starting point. Although she doesn't know that for sure. Again, that's the beauty of the story, is we're sort of piecing it together for her. And we struggle too, because it's hard to figure these things out sometimes. I make the Caesar salad at his table and watching my every move, meanwhile buttering pieces of bread. Anyway, I'm so keyed up or something, I knock over his glass of water. So Carver does a very good job of showing us nervousness through physical actions. And note all the times in Carver, there's just tiny physical actions that serve the purpose of saying what maybe two paragraphs of insight to a Monroe character or a Yates character might do. It's just as simple as her knocking on the glass. Why? She's nervous. I'm so sorry, I said. It always happens when you're in a hurry. I'm very sorry. You all right? I'll get the boy to clean up right away, I say. It's nothing, he says. It's all right, he says. He puffs. Don't worry about it. We don't mind. He smiles, waves as I go off to get Leander. When I come back to serve the salad, I see the fat man is eating all his bread and butter. A little later, when I bring him more bread, he's finished his salad. You know the size of those Caesar salads? We don't, but Rita does. And she wants Rita to understand. You're very kind, he says. The bread is marvelous. Thank you. It's very good. We mean that. We don't often enjoy bread like this. Where are you from? I asked him. I don't believe I've seen you before, I said. He's not the kind of person you'd forget, Rita puts in with a snicker. Now Rita, for the first time, has really added to the discussion. I'm going to take one more break here.